You're listening to another episode of the Just Go Bike podcast. That's AKA Murph.
And that's AP. And this is the podcast where we talk about cycling just for the fun of it. With tales from all over the nation, come for the bikes, stay for the fun, and leave with a smile.
Well, hello, Murph.
Hello, AP. Here we are again in person recording.
That's right. We are in the Venture Cycling World HQ as we speak.
Yes, and listeners can't see this, but right behind you is the Parrot Talk Studios logo.
Oh, that's right. I am at home today. We just finished unloading a giant truck full of things from the Ride the Rockies warehouse to consolidate into this warehouse. I have never seen so many coolers for water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
So we have about 50 of those in the warehouse right now. So kind of a cool operations day for the Venture Cycling team as we start to try to really reassess after the rides to see what we've got, see where we're going. And I think that leads us perfectly into today's episode.
Yes. So a great segue. Thank you, AP.
You're welcome.
We have a special reoccurring guest on, and he is Matt Phippen.
Well, hello, ladies.
Hey. So I'm sure most listeners know, but Matt Phippen is the executive director for RAGBRAI. And since I'm here at the office today, of course, you guys were unloading a truck. We thought it'd be a great opportunity for Matt to sit down and kind of get all of us in the podcast world up to date on what's happening in RAGBRAI. And he said yes.
Yes.
So
I will always say yes. Talk about RAGBRAI anytime.
So thank you, Matt. Here we are recording this in almost Halloween time. So does that mean you're just kind of sitting back, laying on the couch every day, or what are you doing each day?
I would love to tell you that I'm not stressed about anything right now. It is smooth sailing. We had our fall ride, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It was a great day for a fall ride. We are in cross season, so we had we did a cross race this last weekend. The Grand was a event that we went out and kind of played a role in. Mm-hmm. So definitely ramping up the fall festivities. Mm-hmm. I am a big fall guy. I love sweatshirts and jeans and stocking cap. That's kind of my weather. But no, we are full game on for 51. We've already had multiple meetings with, DOT just talking through roads and what the projects look like this year. Mm-hmm. Because you could, in your brain think of where you want to go, but if we don't have the roads to get there, we're not going in that direction. So
I knew it. I knew. I don't think there's probably ever a time in the year where you just hang out on the couch, right?
Oh, well, no. Really, I'm just trying to think. Yeah, the last time that we were actually on the couch. Yeah, I try to find some couch every once in a while if I can find 30 minutes in my day to kind of relax a little bit on the line. But
that's allowable.
Having 3 girls and a very active lifestyle, there's really there's no rest. And people I talk to, I'd rather live that where I'm constantly busy than just look and go, well, now what should we do? Because there's just nothing going on. So I do like being busy. Plus with how my brain works, I don't think my brain ever really turns off.
Right.
So I try to find ways to stay.
But it's
stay
such
busy.
a unique time of the year because, I'm speaking as a RAGBRAI rider. I've done my RAGBRAI 50. I don't put my bikes away ever. I bike year round, but I've transitioned from the skinny tire bike to more of the fat tire bike because the seasons are physically changing in addition to metaphorically. But tell us what happens this time of year as far as executive director type things.
Sure. So obviously we've been doing a lot of recaps we did the towns right out of the gate. So in August, we kind of did our farewell tour with the towns. And with that, we discussed wins and losses. We want to know, we want to hear how the towns won, but we really want to learn how we can get better and make changes for the future. Because it is good to hear all the good things, but you have to hear the bad things too to be able to get better. Mm-hmm. So the good news is there was a lot of really, really good things, a lot of great things in some of these small communities that truly capitalized on the event. And I've always said if you believe in your community that you're going to make millions of dollars, you're going to lose. And the towns that showcase their communities and said we're only going to do what our town can do, and that's it. Those are the towns that you hear these amazing stories of, churches getting $15,000 to $17,000 selling baked goods. And it's like, you hit a home run. And it's the towns that the riders look forward to because they know a town of 200 that turns into a town of 50,000 that day.
Right.
That's not a normal thing for them. So when you have every person in the community all hands on deck pulling this event off. The riders definitely noticed that, and then they gave back. So, did the town recaps. That turned out really good for us. We learned a lot of really great things. And then it's getting to the bike shops. It's getting to, we just had our charter meeting, last week, talking to charters about, the 50th for them and, the future years for that. But it's just, we want to hear kind of, how everything went and learn as much as we can so we can actually, put a fork in 50 and start thinking about 51.
And I'll also speak on behalf as a rider because, year 50 was a very unique year because it was hyped up as the 50th. It was a lot of teams and individuals were like, I want to do RAGBRAI 50 specifically because it's RAGBRAI 50. So where do you go from that when you come to RAGBRAI 51?
Well, I think for us, it's one of those years where you look at it and go, like, it's now we got to nail it because people are coming for 50. And, you talk to people after 50 and they want to come for 51. And the problem is, you can't take 50 numbers to some of these towns that are going to be in the future Russell. They just can't support it. Where a central route, based on what we did for 50, having larger communities that have the infrastructure to pull it off makes the ride easy.
Wait, are you saying you're doing the same route?
Gosh, how great would that be? I mean, we joke about with these towns, but if we went back for round 2,
oh my gosh,
every town knew exactly where they fell short.
Yeah.
The charters knew where they were camping and where the people were showing up. The riders knew how to. I mean, you would roll into that town going, "Oh, I remember this place because I was here a year ago."
Yeah.
It would make things easier, but that's just not how the ride works.
You're right. Yep.
And I think from a planning standpoint, that'd be fantastic for us because then we could have some couch time where I could just relax for a little while and not worry about things. But, riders want a different location. They want a different community. Plus, what we're seeing too is we've sent out, our town application letters. We're getting town letters back saying we want RAGBRAI.
Yeah.
And that's, I think we've had over the last 2 years, with year 1 for me being 49, where you had, 70 degrees and tailwinds and people called it one of the best RAGBRAIs ever. And then you have year 50, which was, 110 degrees most days where people were melting and headwinds. And you still heard one of the best RAGBRAIs ever because of it was challenging and there was so many cool things that happened. So now you go into 51 going, okay, where do we go? Where can we go from a standpoint of if the riders still want to come and show up and, that first year rider wants to be now a second year rider from an infrastructure standpoint, a town that can support that. And, the big thing is the town that you find may support it, but because of DOT and county projects, you can't get there. So then you have to think about, okay, what's plan B look like? So there's a lot of behind the scenes, kind of getting feelers on what's going on because you don't want to call a town or a county guy and say, hey, what projects do you have? Why is RAGBRAI coming? And you have to be very, very careful. So you kind of have to go get some backdoor conversations with people to find out, okay, do you know a guy or a gal in this area that you could just, reach out to, ask them how they're doing and what kind of projects they have going, and just kind of help us out a little bit because, I mean, if we truly could get everybody in the room, the conversation would go really, really easy. But because the ride is a secret, and we announce in January, and I always call it's the biggest gender reveal party in the state because you're announcing where we're going, and it means so much to so many people that you want to keep it as quiet as possible. And I'm also smart enough to know that it will get out. There will be bits and pieces that will get out.
Sure.
But if we can build a team with the DOT and our county agencies that can help us keep this quiet and we can all be on the same page, we then can get it to the towns earlier, the counties earlier, so they can start planning and not feel like, oh, we find out about this in January. We now have a smaller window to plan. And, in January, we just announced the overnight towns. We're still locking in a lot of the pass-through towns because you got to get there too. And, there's nothing worse than a pass-through town hearing about it through someone else. And then you get a phone call as the director and you have someone that's upset because they heard it through a channel that wasn't us. So it definitely puts us in a bad spot. So, right now we're just talking to the DOT. We're getting applications back in. All the applications are due by the 31st of October. I have a stack on my desk I've been going through, and there's no's on there, and you read through the no's, and you can see why there's no's. But I think what I've found in my last 2 years, towns say no out of the gate because it is a lift, and they don't feel they have the ability to pull it off. And I can now go back for 2 years and say, I can give you contacts in a bunch of communities that are small and large, and just finding the right people makes it all work. You put build the best, committee. You put the right people on the right seat on the bus. They can pull it off. And we saw that, with some small towns that, early on said no, but they came around and we now have 100% after 2 years of every town we went through said, if it ever comes back through the area, give us time to breathe. Don't come back next year.
Yeah.
But we would say yes again for you because of the experience that we had.
That's huge.
Well, and I think that changing the time that we not publicly plan the route, but where we talk to the DOT, we bring them to the table, we extend that time and give everyone just a little bit more time to think about and process and plan, has been a really important change that we've made over even just your 2 years since quote unquote the old days.
Yeah.
I think it's really helped a lot. It's one of many things that we've improved to try to make it better.
I think they feel like they're a part of something now. In the past years, maybe the route was just dropped in and said, okay, this is where we're going. Help us figure it out. Where now we're talking through mile by mile and going, okay, if we go here, what's this look like? If we go there, what's it look like?
Yeah.
Where can't we go? And we made changes last year and even the previous year that because of projects pulled us off a road that I thought we should go on, but the DOT or whoever the county said no to it. They put us on better roads.
Yeah.
Roads that they just know better than I do. And from a
Sure.
scenery standpoint, from just a quality of road, it got better. So like I've told them, I said, I want to be able to look at you at the end of this and feel like we pulled this off together. It wasn't just RAGBRAI with all the wins, but it was us winning together.
Yeah.
And I think that's, when you're in the room with these guys and gals, there's a level of excitement. You don't feel that, walking in, it's us versus them. You feel like it's us together. And I think that's a good building block for future. But for me being the director, like that's how we win.
Yeah.
We surround ourselves with amazing partners that help us pull it off together. And, if we wouldn't have had amazing partners in 50, I don't know if we could have finished the ride because of everything that kind of got thrown at us.
Yeah. Okay. So you were talking about, going to the towns from RAGBRAI 50 and sort of getting their wins, their losses, everything. I just want to kind of talk about the case study of early Iowa because I feel like there's such a good example of how important it is to work with the towns and truly be on the same page about what it means to have RAGBRAI in your community.
Yeah, I mean, Early was a town for us that, played a major role because it got us across Highway 20 safely. If you remember back to year 49, we had to cross Highway 20. We had to zigzag over it. Well, because of the road, we got to go, it made the route a lot easier. So, being in that area, Early had to be on the map. There was like, from my perspective, there was no other way around it. Year 2 for me, Ann and I are doing our first year, our second year of travels together. And, we go into the city office and there's a young lady behind the desk. And, I say, hey, I'm Matt with RAGBRAI. And she looks at us and she says, yeah, we don't like you around here.
Oh, no way.
And it's like, okay, this is how it's gonna go. So like my instant gut reaction is like, well, is there anybody else that I can talk to that may like us? But it was honesty, right? I mean, the last time RAGBRAI came through, there wasn't a win there. They lost.
Yeah.
And obviously things happen, and we don't need to go down that road. But from my perspective is, okay, now I have a major roadblock in front of me that's going to possibly make us have to change the route, and I don't know how we're going to pull it off because I can't go back to the DOT and say, hey, we need to zigzag again because this is going to cause problems. We need Early on the map. So we asked for a meeting with the mayor. The mayor showed up and she was a sweetheart, and we just started talking through things and explained to them how this team is different than the last team. And one of the biggest things that we changed was, in 49 we didn't do it, but in 50 we did. We gave money back to these pass-through towns, which if you look at it, you go, duh, like they should be getting money right out of the gate because they're probably the town or the community that needs it the most because they're the smallest. So when we said, hey, we understand you had a bad experience. Things are changing. We want to be here more, and we gave them the plan. But we also want to offset your budgets and be able to give you money right out of the gate. So the first thing you can do is book porta potties.
Yep.
Not have to go out and fundraise. Not have to go lean on your local donors that donate to every little event that you do. We want to give you money right now, and it was $5,000 out of the gate that we said, okay, give us your numbers here. We'll deposit into your account, and then instantly you can start making things happen. And when that switch got flipped, you could tell the feeling in the room changed. They didn't say yes yet, but they weren't saying no.
Yeah.
And, so we said, I kind of chew on it a little bit. We're going to finish our tour. And, it was just one of those things where, me loving RAGBRAI as much as I do and loving RAGBRAI, it's getting a kick in the stomach. And you're like, gosh, how are we going to be able to win them over? And, I'm the new guy. They're meeting Ann, for the first time. And it's like, we're trying to win you over. And I'm trying to explain how things are going to be better. And at the end of the day, it's like, if they do say yes, we got to make sure things are better.
Yeah.
And, the route changed a little bit. I think last time we went through early, it was the last town before the overnight. It was hotter than heck that day. So riders just, got there quick, where they were going to be the breakfast stop for one of the first towns out of the gate. Well, you fast forward to 50 and, I pulled into the town and it was mass chaos.
Yeah.
People everywhere. I walked up to the mayor and she gave me the biggest hug and the smile, and you could just see that they were winning. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those things you almost under your breath say yes and fist pump a little bit, because you want to see that happen, meeting with them on the regular basis, having conversations, going to them when they had questions about things, just to show that we were going to be there, we were going to help. And then to see it all kind of work out and, truly be successful in front of them was fantastic. And, they were a town that's afterwards said, yep, next time it comes through, if it's close, you give us a call. We'd love to host again.
Yeah. And I think it's just, you glossed kind of over the seed money and giving them a boost. I don't know if you listeners realize how much a porta potty costs ahead of the gate. To provide those banks of porta potties is thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And not everyone has that kind of money just sitting around, even a town.
Yeah, and it's one of the things that you need to get out right out of the gate, because you had 38 communities en route this year. As soon as they all say yes, that's the first thing they're doing. So they're booking porta potties. Yeah. So then it turns into this racket of, well, this company's sold out, so now we're trying to find a different company, and this company's now $25 more expensive. So you want to be able to jump on that right away and lock those in. And in previous years they had to look at what they had for funds, which was usually nothing, and then they'd look around the room, kind of pass the hat, and go, okay, RAGBRAI's coming through. Put some funds in this. We got to buy some porta potties.
Yeah.
And, for us to be able to say, don't worry about that. Worry about building your committee. Worry about, building this event space, and don't live outside your means. Don't do things that, are going to cost you and your committee lots of money, because riders don't need that. They want a great experience. They want to see your town thrive, and they want to give back to that. They don't need all this extra stuff. They can get that somewhere else. Just do what you can do and don't live outside your means, and know that at the end of this, you're not going to be millionaires, but the towns that showcase their community are the towns that truly won this year.
Yeah. You could easily be a thousandaire.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
absolutely.
I want to go back to the DOT comment, which is kind of how we started, because as you're talking, I'm just thinking backwards, right? So you've got to get the overnight towns to sign on. Then you've got to get the pass-through towns to sign on. But none of that can happen if the DOT is not signing on to what roads you think you want to use. And I think everyone knows this, but DOT stands for Department of Transportation. So will you maybe dig a little bit deeper? Does the DOT decide the exact route, or do the towns decide the route, or is it all of you together?
It's the way I want it is we're all doing this together. I've kind of laid out, I went down a rabbit hole one night and I grabbed maps and literally at my desk, closed door in my, in my house, and I'm drawing, routes for the next 10 years, where we should go, where haven't I gone yet? Where do I think would be really, really cool? And, like I told everybody, a route, it looks good on paper, but until you start diving into it, you may end up, shredding it and starting over. So, whoever you want to call it, starts plotting a route, and I have routes laid out. And then, obviously we send out applications to the towns, because we want towns to be able to bid for it and say we want it. And, we got, that week it went out, we had towns from this year calling saying, so we got this letter in the mail that says RAGBRAI wants to come back. Are you really coming back here again? And it's no, it goes out to everybody. So I said, please fill it out, send it back, and so we can keep a file. But for me personally, I want to be able to have a file or a playbook of towns that say yes. So when I'm looking at a route, I can go to my file and go, well, here's 4 towns. 3 out of 4 towns said they were interested in doing this. It makes my job easier.
Mm-hmm.
So, we draw out the routes. We have some different ways of doing things, and then we sit in these meetings, and the DOT pulls all their road projects in, and they have like a 5-year plan, and so they know kind of where things are happening. Now, projects change, projects get bidded earlier, money shows up, and now this a project that was supposed to start in August is now getting pushed in May. So like there's all these moving parts that a rider would, by the time they ride, never have to experience. So we check that out, and if their roads look good, then we can start having deeper conversations. And that's kind of where we're at. We have some spots now where we know could be good depending on where the route could go. They feel good about it, and then that's just one little tie. The next tie is county. The DOT says our roads are good. Now you have to talk to all the county guys and gals.
Man, I didn't even think about that aspect.
To see if they're good with it too. And because their projects are not on the same spreadsheet. So, you might have to use a state road that connects to a county road, back to a state road, whatever that looks like. And you have to have everybody on board with it. So as long as, you roll the dice and the county says, yeah, there's no projects on this road, we're good with it. And then you talk to, you look at, okay, now that we've talked to the DOT, they're good. Now we talk to the county's good. Now we need to talk to the town to make sure the town's good. So if you check the 2 boxes, then you go into the town and the town says, yeah, we don't want you. Now it's like, well, now what do I do? Like I've talked to 2 out of 3.
Right.
I'm feeling really good about this. And because of the town saying no, we might have to change the route. And, last year we had some towns we had a town that said no to it. So we had to make a change, and there's nothing we could do to persuade them or show them why we can make this work. And, because of that change, took off another community prior to that because we had to go through one community to get to the other.
Sure.
So we had to reroute some things, but that's in a perfect, scenario, everybody says yes, yes, yes. And then we're going this way. But if you have one person or one group throw you a curveball and say no, depending on where that is in the process, you have to figure that out.
Sure.
So I would love to tell you that the route is dialed in, it's good to go, but it's not. We're still waiting on the applications to come in because they're still showing up. And then once we get those all received, you hope that where the route possibly could go, there's a town that says we want you there. So, I think the way we're doing things for the future will change some perspectives on the towns doing more. But we're already seeing, based on the last 2 years of history, and there's a lot of momentum around RAGBRAI right now. We have towns already reaching out prior to the application, saying, "Hey, how do I do this? How do I get my town on the map?"
Well, and it's actually a little bit mind-blowing to think that you're able to announce the route the end of January, knowing all of those different moving parts. But I know we have to announce the route because then all these communities need to start preparing. And the marketing side of things. And for me, getting my booty on a trainer so I can be ready for it. So all of that's just crazy.
Yeah, it'll be fast forward. We're busy right now, but there's still a lot that needs to be done from now till January before we can announce. And there will be, like I told you guys earlier, like I would love to tell you that I'm not stressed. I am stressed because until we get every town to say yes, and the route is technically finalized, now we're just dialing it in. There's going to be those stress points where it's kind of the fear of the unknown. And when you have so many people that have such a massive love for this ride, you want to do it right, and you want people to go, "Oh, I'm so excited about this year." But yeah, there's so many cool towns we could go to that just have so many awesome things to offer.
And the route isn't even ever truly dialed in until we finish the route inspection and we ensure that the route is good for riders.
Yeah, that June. I mean, that's kind of the last time we make any major changes, and you hope that you've done enough leading up to that so there is no major changes. And the last 2 years, they're really, besides a bridge being kind of throwing us a curveball, we've pivoted both times, but there is really, knock on wood, there hasn't been anything major that would make us change it after the fact. Mother Nature is really the only one that plays a role. If she comes to town and destroys something, like we have done in the past where a park was flooded, we had to change the route. But if that box gets checked and Mother Nature stays away, then the route can happen.
How do you think year 3 for you, it's RAGBRAI 51, but year 3 for you, going into that, your first year was just that, brand new, RAGBRAI inside and out, but now you're a director. Then you go into
the 50th,
which was, all eyes on Iowa, on RAGBRAI, and on you. How do you think it's going to be different now that you're going into RAGBRAI 51?
I was year one for me. I wasn't as stressed because, I had an amazing team around me. The route had to get dialed in, and we were building the route constantly from day one. I can go back to it and say is I was the new guy. I could fly under that radar of being the new guy. Well, year two, you're not really the new guy anymore because you've been around it. So, the phone calls and the emails that Ann and this team would get, I'm now getting them more, and they want to know what's going on more. And there were, like to your point earlier, there were so many eyes around it, and so many people and organizations thinking one thing or hearing something, or the comments on social media about this or that. There was just a lot of eyes, positive in some directions and negative in other directions. So you just knew that because of the event, because of the scale, because of it being a unicorn where you're going to register what you're going to register, and then people show up, you really don't get to appreciate that or understand it until you stand in Sioux City at Expo Day and you look around and there's people everywhere and it's jam-packed, and you talk to the vendors and they're selling out of things. You talk to the bike shops, they're selling out of things, day zero for us. And, people are still coming. Like not everybody's there yet. Talking to right before the concert, talking to that committee, how there's some campgrounds getting kind of overrun and crowded because of people still showing up. And it's like, okay, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Is this going to work? And then you have the concert, and it was a great night. And, we went to bed feeling really, really good. And, then the next morning you wake up and there's a 3-hour line at baggage. And that was kind of the first, punch in my gut of like, okay, we can't do this. This entire time leading up to this, we've been promoting, get on the route at 6 a.m. A lot of people, you're going to want to get up early and do this. And now, because of our baggage, people are getting on the road at 9 a.m. or 8 a.m., 2 hours behind what we wanted them to be on the road. And, I didn't go to social media, which was probably smart, but, there was a lot of backlash from that standpoint of, RAGBRAI sucks, they're screwing up, this is a bad deal. So we had to pivot. So we were literally talking about, how do we fix this? How do we make it better? And we even brought an extra trailer to carry the load. But that was the first punch in the gut for me that day, going, okay, this is day one. We have a lot of days left. We have to figure this out. Yeah. And we did, and it got better. But then you get a phone call from SAG 1, and he says, hey, we have full SAGs 5 miles outside of Sioux City going into Storm Lake. And I said, stop, don't do this to me right now. Like, we got to get going. He goes, no, seriously, we have all our SAGs are full. And there was a Casey's as you leave, as you leave the first town, Sioux City, and bikes are upside down. So people dipped their tires, rode 5 miles to this Casey's, and basically flipped bikes up. And we had full SAGs running into, to Storm Lake. So now to talk through process of SAG, if you've never had SAG before, we load you up and we take you all the way into the overnight town. So like there's no just dropping you off in the next town. We're literally taking you all the way in. So, if that day's 70 some miles, it's 140 miles round trip to get those riders in, unloaded and dropped, and then back.
Yeah.
So then you have all your SAGs tied up. Well, rewind to year 49. We had SAG drivers asleep on the side of the road because there was no business for them. It was like this storm of people that wanted to be in, and just the level of, and I hate using the word entitlement sometimes, but there was just, as soon as I flipped my bike upside down, where's my SAG?
Yeah.
I want to be in. And, people thought it was a shuttle service. Yeah. Well, I don't want to go in all the way. I want to just get dropped off in the next town, and then I want to ride a little bit more and then get picked up again. It's like, we can't SAG thousands and thousands and thousands of people every day because you want to ride bits and pieces here. But literally, before the first big hill out of Sioux City, we had full SAGs rolling
incredible.
There was the train tracks there, and that train track was rough. So we had some accidents, so it kind of bottlenecked the riders up. And then a train went through and really held people up too. So, there was definitely some gaps between that, but, we are trying to figure out our life. We had a 3-hour wait at baggage. We now had full SAGs the entire day trying to get into Storm Lake. And, looking back, I was laying in my bed that night after we finally made it into Storm Lake and the concert was done, thinking, can we do this? Can we physically, figure this out? I'm on Zillow looking at homes in Alaska, thinking I'm going to have to move. I mean, it was just one of those things where we weren't ready for that. We didn't think that riders would sign up for a bike ride and then, not want to truly ride their bike, long distances. And, it was the first day. I mean, everybody was fresh. Love or hate e-bikes. There was a lot of e-bikes that we sagged in, not because the batteries were dead. It's because the rider was just done riding for the day. They don't want to ride anymore. So we have to rethink how we're doing our sag going forward. We had an amazing sag team and they got stretched super, super thin, but we've already kind of processed things. If we wouldn't have found a bus company, I don't believe we could have pulled 50th off. And, that day I'm on phones calling major trucking companies, trying to find extra semis because we have a thing called a super sag, which if you're around RAGBRAI, it happens, very few and far between. It's usually for bad weather where we'll send a semi out on the route with a bus and load bikes into a semi just to get people off the road to bring them in. Well, that week we had 2 semis and 6 school buses on route every single day. And I couldn't get riders in fast enough.
Yeah. It's literally insane.
It was, and I was worried about food and water, having enough food and water for people. I wasn't thinking that, the biking side of things would be the problem that would be, or I think would cause us the most problems. So we figured that out. We got a bus company en route. So instead of us taking, loading people up and driving them in the overnight town, we would pick people up on the road and we would have school buses staged in these pass-through towns, and we would load bikes into a semi, we would load butts into the school bus, and we would drive them in. The day going into Coralville, which was the hottest day, I'm in the back of a semi, and I tell people it's like the scene from A Walking Dead where the horde of zombies are like at your feet, and they all have bicycles, and they want them on this trailer, and I'm grabbing bicycles just to get them in. And the unfortunate part is, I put and my team put so many unregistered riders' bikes into the semi because they just need to get in, and we are not going to tell you can't come in. So I'm loading bikes, and we were just kind of just doing some basic math. A semi can hold about 100 bikes, stacked in there. We feel, based on just talking through things after the week was over, that we sagged 5,000 to 7,000 people for the entire week. So, in a small sag with a van, you could then pass the clipboard around, people write their numbers down so they're a registered rider. And then if they weren't, we could easily say, well, maybe you should buy a pass for tomorrow and get them to pay for the service. Well, because there were so many people and a school bus, there was no way of passing the clipboard around to capitalizing on this. Just a lot of people that, did not bring the best version of themselves to this ride. And, if you think about all the planning that we did, they didn't plan very, very well. I mean, we had, you hear stories of people getting dropped off in Davenport on the Saturday before, and the wife leaves him, goes back to their hometown, states away, and he wants to know how he does RAGBRAI. And the Davenport team says, well, you have to get to Sioux City. And he's like, well, where's that at? Well, it's 4+ hours away, and all the charters have already left. They wanted to be a part of the 50th. They wanted to be a part of the experience, but there was a lot of riders that just didn't even plan, research. I'm telling you right now, Iowa is not flat.
Right.
It gets hot in Iowa in July. And when you are blessed with, 70 degrees, like in 49, man, embrace that. But just know that's not a normal.
Yeah.
It is hot. I stood and did an interview in one of our towns, and behind the reporter was a thermometer from a bank, and it was a 5-minute interview, and I watched that thermometer just click up because it just kept getting hotter and hotter and hotter. The heat played a major role, and I don't care who you are, I don't care how fit you are. I talked to so many teams that were in great shape and they struggled. It was definitely a hard RAGBRAI, but the ones that mailed it in are the ones that caused the most problems. And it was unfortunate. I mean, it was their RAGBRAI. They wanted to, be the ISAG 7 days of RAGBRAI kind of thing, and see Iowa in a school bus, which was in my opinion unfortunate. But you have to have riders that if you do sign up for a ride, you have to put the hours in, you have to train, and you just have to understand that this ride, it is going to be hard no matter where you go.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of the joy of hitting the Mississippi River, is that you have achieved a massive ride. And you have really put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and you made it. You have to, there's a little pain before the
Oh,
payoff.
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just knowing, I mean, RAGBRAI is a bicycle ride. So if you're going to sign up to do RAGBRAI, I think hopefully everyone goes into it assuming that they're going to ride their bikes across the state. And that means you have to do a lot of, just like, Matt, you have to do a lot of pre-planning for all of us, logistics. If I sign up for RAGBRAI, I've got to plan my body, adapting to heat, figuring out how to do hills, regardless of what kind of bike I have. Like, hopefully everyone goes into the week saying, I'm going to ride, I have trained, I'm mentally prepared, I'm physically prepared. And if you don't have that mindset, I don't know, I think that maybe you need to really take a look at if RAGBRAI is the right ride.
Oh, for sure. And it's just from the scale standpoint, you just can't, so many unregistered riders and support vehicles.
Yeah.
And the day one, I think of, Alex Stinkla, who's a state patrol contact of ours, who's fantastic. There was a 4-mile stretch of, us turning vehicles around in the first meeting town because they had, I'm just a friend. I want to go say hi to my buddy who's in town. And it's like, well, if he's not dying or he doesn't need help, I need you to move on into Storm Lake. And, the best part was the majority of the vehicles had the same 80-year-old man that needed help. And it's like, well, the vehicle right behind me, before you said they had an 80-year-old man they had to pick up. So you must be like, is it a grandpa? You guys all share him or what's the deal? But they always had, it was always a dad or a grandpa or, someone that needs help. So we would let him go. But, the amount of vehicles that just came out, and, the unfortunate part too is, we've done a lot with the DOT. We have, I would love to tell you that during the week of RAGBRAI, the entire state of Iowa just shuts down and there's no vehicles anywhere else. But people are still living their lives.
Right.
So the DOT has this, and the county have these backup plans. So if there is an accident, this road gets detoured. So we have our bike route, which we want vehicles off. We have a support route that we want vehicles on, and then we have all these other routes that are kind of just in limbo right now with traffic on. And we partnered with Ride with GPS this year, so we created a turn by turn. So literally, you could just hit play. It's downloadable, so you don't have to worry about cell service. And if you just listen to her voice and take her instructions, it gets you from where we need you to go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
Well, they like Siri or they like Google or they like somebody else, and then the Siris of the world and the Googles of the world don't know that we have a bike ride going on. So they're routing them on our route. So then all these vehicles are showing up that we're not ready for. So we're constantly pivoting and having to shut roads down because people are just coming from everywhere because, they've either listened to those two platforms or I know this area better than anybody else. So I know the back ways to get
sure.
in. And then now they're here. So now we're even more cluttered up with things where you just look at it and go, if you just listened to us, if you just downloaded the maps, if you just stayed away this day, you wouldn't be causing all these problems.
Yeah.
But, after that day one and then day two, and then looking at the future, and it's kind of on RAGBRAI, if you can get through Wednesday, you can finish RAGBRAI.
Yeah.
And we had to get through Wednesday, which was, I think, by far the most optics on the entire week because of it was going to be the biggest day. It was Ames to Des Moines. You had 4 smaller towns connecting the dots into those communities. You had, people thinking that the route was going to be unsafe, the people that were going to die on this day, towns were going to be overrun, all these factors. And, from a planning standpoint, knowing that, we looked at it even more and dissected even more to make sure we were doing right by the riders and by the state of Iowa. And if you look at that day, the towns that showed up absolutely hit home runs.
For sure.
It was amazing. And you hear like, well, this is one of the best days ever. We closed down Highway 69, which is something we haven't done before, closing down major roadways. And the planning process in that was incredible, and the amount of hours that went into that. I stood at a Casey's on Highway 69 and just watched riders roll on brand new pavement because that road's been under construction forever.
Sweet. Yeah.
I mean, you had grown men and women like this childish feeling. They were laughing and giggling and having a good time, and they were hot because it was a hot day, but they were so protected. The DOT was out there, with their big trucks and, providing service, but, everything kind of came together, and I stood, at the biggest stage I've ever seen with Leonard Skinner coming to town in a, one of our VIP suites with air conditioning, and like this weight was like almost like lifted off me because I felt like, okay, we did it. We made it. Now we had to get through Thursday and Friday, the 2 hottest days of the week, and the hilliest days.
Yes.
So you live in that moment of like feeling good about how things are going, knowing that in 15 hours we're back to where we started again, being in the middle of everything, and everything we told the towns from a planning standpoint, telling towns that riders will be up early, 4 or 5. You'll have some riders that'll be on the roads. We had riders on the roads at 2:30 in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get ahead of things. And it's like, being me and being, driven across, we're on roads and you see these bikes come at you with no lights on and it's pitch black outside, but they wanted to get ahead of it. So then they show up in these towns hours before they even open, wanting food and coffee and all that stuff. And the town's like, we're not ready for you. We're sorry.
Yeah.
So they had to roll on. But we ended up, the 2 biggest days, the 2 hardest days, it was tough on our teams, and we had the SAG services, and we did all that. And for me, Friday was the day that I was looking most forward to, because it was a band that I grew up listening to as, in high school, and it was Bush, and like this was going to be, it was Coralville. So it was my old stomping grounds with Shields. Like I was going to be back home again. And then, one of my State Patrol guys tells me that there's going to be a derecho in Coralville tonight. And I'm like, no way. After everything we've dealt with this entire week, there's no way there's going to be this massive storm. So I jump on my phone, and it shows pop-up showers and this, and I'm like, oh, we're fine. And then Ann calls me and says, we're in a meeting right now talking about how we tear down stage and basically evacuate if this storm comes through. And I'm like, so this is true. And, we get into Coralville, and I'm sitting in a golf cart with Josh Schomburger, who's kind of leading that process. And we're listening to like the last 2 or 3 songs of Plush, the band that opened for Bush. And there is this black cloud behind the stage. And we got a call from Tama Toledo, and they said, 70-mile-an-hour winds, it's coming your way. So I hopped in a golf cart, and we drove around. And it was just so funny from the standpoint of people were just lost in RAGBRAI. You would tell them, hey, you might want to drop your tent. There's a bad storm coming down. Really? A storm? And it's
Here?
like this black cloud behind us. Like, you don't see this coming. And, one guy pulled out his phone and was like, oh, yeah, we need to figure this out. And, then the sirens went off. And you had people looking around like, what do these sirens mean? Like, and Iowans, like, what do? Like, we grab a beer, we go to the front porch, and we like, all right, let's watch it roll in.
Yep.
Where people just didn't know what to do. So then finally, somebody had to go to the stage and say, we need you to evacuate now. And people evacuated.
Yeah. We
took shelter, and the first thing went through, and Josh and I went back out and kind of drove around and looked at people. Everybody was evacuated. Mm-hmm. And, I've gone on record multiple times, and I'll say it again right now. If I ever get to pick a community that has a massive storm, I will pick Coralville, because they are so freaking good at what they do.
Yeah.
And, there's just, you kind of, you process life after RAGBRAI, and you think, okay, if we were in this town, it probably wouldn't have turned out that well for us. But because Coralville had a plan, because Coralville, had, an idea of how to make this work, when it did happen, and you hope it never happens, but when it does happen, to see that plan, come to life and them execute it. If the storm would have went through, we probably could have pulled off the band, because the storm broke up. The band ended up having to leave. So I never got to see Gavin and the boys. I did get an autographed poster from them, which was really cool. But we will always, seeing them perform would have been awesome. But safety of our riders will always be our number one.
For sure, right.
And it's unfortunate that we had to pay for a band that didn't get to play. But to have no one hurt. And I will give credit to RAGBRAI riders. You can tell this is a camping event, because there was 70-mile-an-hour winds, and there were so many tents, because they were put together correctly and anchored down correctly. They stayed up. Yeah. There were some in trees that you could just tell, okay, they didn't know what they were doing. But man, the majority of the tents you drive by and go, that guy knew what he was doing. That guy knew what she was doing. But to have that happen, and then it was 2 a.m. or whatever time it was, and Josh said, you need to go to bed because our team's got this. You have a ride to do the next day. And we had to get to Davenport to dip, and we ended up dipping in Davenport, and the line was the line, and people dipped. And I mean, there was people that waited in line because they wanted to dip to say that they did it, that missed their charter going back because I need to dip. I have to dip to say that I've done this. And we did the medallions that everybody got to, the challenge coins, whatever you want to call them. But I mean, just to see people that when they got there and everything that they endured with the heat and everything that our teams endured, it was like, I have to see this water. I have to put my tires in to say that I truly have accomplished this. And because they could have easily left. Sure. But it meant so much to them to dip their tires and to get the pictures to prove to everyone that they did do it, that they waited in those lines. And but no, I mean, after you're done and you get time to process and you look back, I mean, there were so many things that our team can be very happy about. All the trips across the state, all the planning that we did. There was a lot of opportunities that I'll call them that happened that will set us up for success in 51 and beyond. Things that we learned that we didn't know of, that we now have systems in place. But everything that happened on 50, it pulled our team in some different directions. And I said, day 2, I didn't know if we could finish pulling it off, and we ended up doing it. But to look back and, to be able to pull off this event where you had 50 to 75,000 people on the roads every day, and to get people across the way we did and overcome, obstacle after obstacle was pretty impressive. But, I got home on Sunday after the ride, and then my wife took us on vacation on Monday, and we went to South Dakota, and we were around Sturgis. So I went from one bicycling event to another, and I tell you what, I will choose RAGBRAI over Sturgis every single day.
Well, it's so nice to listen to your perspective because, being somebody who is out there riding, when I look at RAGBRAI 50, it's epic in itself because it's RAGBRAI 50. But in, 5 years or 10 years from now, to be able to be like, that's right. Not only did I ride RAGBRAI 50, I also survived a super bad storm. I survived hills. I survived heat. Yeah. And I got to see river to river. It's just... Yeah. I hope that I'm not the only one out there that has those same feelings of what, we did it.
Yeah, I think it means a lot to so many people, and you hear things and you talk to riders afterwards, and we even talked to riders that were on pre-ride with us that rode pre-ride and the ride, and it was 2 totally different rides.
For sure.
Same roads, just the weather was it was so different. Mm-hmm. And those guys said it was one of the toughest rides I've ever done. You talk to some of the party teams and they tell me, I know you're not going to believe this. We're not drinking any alcohol today. We're just drinking water, and we can't keep up because it was so hot. Right. But the thing that I think is probably the most magical and the thing I'm the most proud of is hearing the stories of outside in the rural Iowa, farm after farm, house after house, free water, free beer, free shade.
Sprinklers.
Just come talk to us, hang out. Yep. That's what's magical about RAGBRAI. Mm-hmm. To be able to pull into somebody's yard and there's free beer, which, wow, I mean, that's fantastic. There's free water, there's free shade. Just come hang out. You can't get that experience anywhere else. And, Iowans knew that it was hot, because we live here. We understand Iowa gets hot and Iowa has hills because nobody else understands this. So we got to take care of our riders. So to be able to offer that service was another great way of, our pulling this ride off because they were helping us out. So it was fantastic.
Yeah. Truly special.
And I'll, just speak for myself. I'm going to do RAGBRAI regardless of where it goes. You know what I mean? But it is still such a special time to know that you're putting in all this work right now so that we can hear the route in January and then we can ride it again in the end of July. So I guess I'll speak on behalf of all the riders. Thank you for all that you do.
Yeah, thank you. It's definitely magical, and it means so much to so many people, and I'll be stressed. But I'm doing it because I want to make sure it's done right. And we owe it to so many people that found it year 1 last year, or the one that's been on route for as long as they can remember being on route. So, no, we'll put the time in for sure.
And I just want to say real quick, as a representative of the RAGBRAI staff, we really pulled it off this year. Woo-hoo. And the blood, sweat, and tears that our team put into this ride, I mean, can't go without mention. We can't say it too many times. I mean, truly incredible, especially for a team where some of these people they've done RAGBRAIs before as a perspective as a committee member or as a rider, but never as a part of the RAGBRAI staff.
Right.
And so quote unquote first timers to be doing this, and to the extent that they went, it was just truly impressive and made me so proud to be a part of the team. And I just want to give everybody on the staff a huge shout out, because we pulled it together, we pulled it off through the tough times and the good times.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'll echo that. That was awesome. Yep, for
Well,
sure.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and we're looking forward to hearing where you're going to take us next year.
Sounds good. Thank you, ladies.
Well, listeners, that is it for this week. We both want to thank you for tuning in to listen to the Just Go Bike podcast.
And if you'd like to contact us with a comment about the podcast, or maybe you have a topic in mind, you can reach us at justgobikepodcast@gmail.com, or you can also follow us on social media at Just Go Bike on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Please rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, especially if you're a fan. And if you have any extra time, pop on over to the Murphology podcast for more bike adventure interviews.
All right, that's a wrap. We'll be back next week. Until then, just go bike!